Today on Messenger, we're talking about faith in action, how prayer, purpose, and people come together in outreach. This episode reminds us that ministry isn't just about preaching, it's about showing up, listening, and letting God lead. We'll look to the example of Paul, a man who went from persecuting Christians to becoming one of the boldest missionaries in the Bible. Through prayer, trials, and teamwork, Paul shows us that God can use anyone, anywhere to spread his love. In our Growing Up Gen Z segment, we ask, what does it mean to be a prayer warrior? And how do we stay spiritually grounded in a world full of noise? Then we go to Fresh Faith with Jocelyn Assuming as she shares how camp meeting deepened her connection to God and community. Later, Josh Martin takes us on a journey through his recent mission trip and how it grew his faith in unexpected ways. Whether it's through a quiet prayer or a bold step of service, outreach begins with surrender. You don't want to miss this one. Hi everyone, welcome to Messenger. I'm Adriana and I'm so glad you're here. Today we're focusing on a powerful moment in Paul's story. Acts chapter 16 verses 9 and 10 says, "During the night Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, 'Come over to Macedonia and help us.' After Paul had seen the vision, we got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them." Paul didn't ignore the call, and he didn't go alone. He brought others with him, Silas and Timothy, and together they followed where God led. Sometimes we think outreach means doing something big by ourselves, but Paul reminds us that ministry often begins with listening, with prayer, with saying yes, and bringing others along. God's mission is a team mission, and when we step out in faith, together, lives can change. Paul's story shows us that answering God's call can lead us to places and people we never expected. Whether it's through travel, friendship, or even just showing up, outreach is about being available for God to use us. That's something today's generation is learning to live out in their own way. In this segment of Growing Up Gen Z, we're talking about the power of prayer and spiritual growth with honest conversations about faith, habits, and real-life challenges. Let's see what Abby Matthew Amram has to say. Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for joining us today on Messenger. It's always great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
What comes to mind when you hear the term prayer warrior?
So prayer warrior is something that I would think of like a grandma going to Wednesday night prayer meeting. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The War Room, but it's like a Christian movie about this grandma who's like really, really good at prayer and she's always praying for people. So that's definitely what I would think of initially.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
You can also, and I think the reason we think that is because like, all of us have like religious grandmas who are like always praying for us, and you know that type of person, and it's not something that you associate with young people because I think young people were not so good at praying a lot, and it's not something that we do as much as probably we should, and so we don't associate that with ourselves. Mm-hmm. But if you also think of like people from the past, like all of the saints, the apostles, like they prayed so much.
That's true.
And think of Jesus, like how much I don't think he slept ever. Like he was always just like praying all night long, and so the term prayer warrior definitely, although it has that image in your mind, I think it can apply to a lot of things. It can apply to a lot of different kinds of people. So
that's true.
I think we should become more comfortable thinking of ourselves as prayer warriors.
Yes, because any one of us can pray.
Exactly.
Yeah. What does putting on the armor of God mean to you in everyday life?
So to me, I would say the armor of God, because Paul talks about it, I don't remember all of them, but it's like salvation, faith, righteousness, truth, peace, the Spirit, and prayer. Mm-hmm. And so those are like all the characteristics that make up a Christian, really, if you think about it. And so when we become Christian, which means that we're imitating Christ, I think that is what makes us strong against like temptations and all of the things that we kind of face in life. And so putting on the armor of God, although it's like, it's a very nice metaphor that like St. Paul gives us, because he's using this, soldier and armor metaphor. But it's really like the things that we achieve in Christian life, like having faith and being saved and like, having righteousness and peace and truth and all of these things are like, this is what makes us strong as people, and it's what makes us strong in life. And so I think, and especially prayer, is like, this is how we fight the struggles that we face in life, is like by doing all of these things that like by imitating Christ.
Yes. Why do you think prayer is such a powerful tool for Christians?
So my reason for thinking prayer is really powerful, I mean, you can read that in the Bible probably in a lot of places. I'm not the first person to suggest this, but I heard somewhere, and I don't remember who said it, so unfortunately, but that the purpose of prayer is to spend time in the presence of Christ. And so I think, when you think about that, it's like, as Christians, we're supposed to be like Christ. And so if we're able to spend a lot of time in his presence, and we do that through praying, then we are able to like become like him a lot more. And that's really helps us as like becoming good Christians and changing the way that we think and changing the way that we respond to people. Because as we pray and as we spend time with God, it changes our hearts. And so when our hearts have changed, that's like, you can change behavior externally, and I think that there's a lot of emphasis sometimes on changing external behavior, but we don't really think about the internal, because that's something that only we know. We only know what's going on in our own hearts. And so prayer is a way that we can actually change our hearts and like change how we respond to things, and that's going to actually give us like Christian behavior. If you want to act like a Christian on the outside, you have to be like Christ on the inside. And we can only do that if we spend time with him, and we spend time with him through praying.
Yes.
And so it's like a cycle, but once you get there, then you get all the other things. You can't start out on the outside. You have to start on the inside and work your way outward.
Yes, for transformation.
Yeah, exactly.
How can prayer help us deal with challenges that aren't visible or physical?
So I think it's kind of related to what we were just talking about before, is that like prayer is an internal practice. And so you think of like non-visible or non-physical challenges. I would think of like mental health. Maybe you have a lot of anxiety, you don't have peace of mind, or maybe you have like temptations that you have a hard time dealing with, things like that. This is something that we can't address with like physical means. There's not a lot of things that we can do. And prayer is something, as we were saying before, is like it changes your heart. And so I find personally that like after I started praying more, I found that I was just a lot calmer in general, like have a lot more peace of mind, because I know that like I have that time where I can just sit and I can pray, and I don't have to worry about things when I'm in that mode. And so even though the day maybe you have a lot of worries in a day, or you have some bad things that happen or whatever is going on, you know that like at the end of the day you're going to sit down and you're going to pray, and you can kind of let go of that. And so I think it's really, really helpful for addressing those non-physical and invisible challenges, because there's not much else we can do to address those kinds of things. Like there's a limited amount of resources that we have to address these kind of intangible problems in our lives. And prayer is a really powerful one, for one, because it helps us calm ourselves, it helps us have peace of mind, but also because it like over time will transform our hearts.
Yes, and it connects us with Christ.
Yes, and spending time with Christ is the one thing that's really going to save us.
Exactly. What does it mean to pray for people who may oppose or hurt us?
So this one is something that I think is really, unfortunately, very self-explanatory. We have to pray for people we don't like. That's like, you don't want to do it. Nobody has the real intention to do it, and that's why we need Christ, because we don't have the right inclinations, on our own. But all the things that you would pray for yourself, all the things that you would pray for your loved ones, I think we also have to include our disliked ones in that list. And we can see powerful things happen through that. Something that I wonder is like, St. Paul has this amazing conversion. He was a great persecutor of Christians, and he was a really terrible person for quite a while. And then he experienced this amazing conversion, this amazing experience, and he becomes the greatest like apologist and the greatest preacher and he teaches so many people about Christ. And I just wonder that, like, while he was persecuting the church, were people praying for him? And I think, one day we'll ask him. We'll ask the people who were there at that time. We can fill in on some of the details that we don't know. But and he also writes in some of his letters, he asks people to pray for Caesar, which is something that you probably wouldn't have thought to do. Caesar was not a good guy. He was not a guy that you would probably think was going to become a Christian. But he to ask people to pray for those who were in Caesar's court, and for Caesar himself, they would pray for him as well. So.
Yeah, that's very deep and profound.
Eventually Caesar converted, and that's a controversial thing on its own, but that is something that happened, and that's something that the church was trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Prayer is so important.
Yes, it's very powerful. The thing is, like, you don't know what your prayers are doing. You don't know exactly how they're affecting the situation, which is why I think we struggle to do it, because it's like we pray and then we don't really know what has happened after that. But I think we know from the apostles and from Christ that it's really important to do, even when we don't see immediate results from it.
That's true, because we can't always see everything.
No,
but we just
you
have
can't
to have
see almost
faith.
anything.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you could see 90%, I think it would be easy, but we see like 5%.
Yeah, that's true. How can we avoid getting caught up in arguments and focus more on prayer?
This one is like, I don't know if you've ever heard the term comment section warrior. But that's like when you are watching like YouTube videos or TikTok videos, and then you see people who put these like long paragraphs in the comment section, and they'll write a whole essay, and it's like, this isn't productive. And then people will get into debates in the comments, and like it's like putting your own energy into that is not productive at all. All you're doing is like engaging with people who don't care what you're saying, and who aren't, like, you don't know who these people are. You don't know, like, there's no open dialogue. There's no actual listening going on in these types of debates. And like, I think broadly to like online debates and even in-person debates, often like, and I myself can be a bit of an argumentative person. So I know in firsthand how you can just get into the argument. And then when you're in that argument, it stops becoming about like trying to find the right answer to the question, but just about proving to the other person that you know more than them. And that's not productive. That's not like how we're supposed to respond to things as Christians. So I think like if we are in a situation where we feel that people have the wrong idea about something, or that people are struggling with something, maybe they're doing something that we think is not good for them, pray about it. I think that the solution is to pray about it. That's like, fighting with people is not the solution. I think from Jesus we gather that in a lot of situations. He does not say, blessed are those who fight their neighbor.
No, he does not.
Blessed are the peacemakers is something that we should keep in our minds.
Definitely.
In modern culture, when that is not a value at all that our society is pushing, but it's something that we really need to keep in mind, is that like, try to live peacefully with everybody. Don't get into unnecessary fights. And like, pray about everything. The first response that we should have is, I'm not saying that this is the first response that I have by any means, but ideally our first response to things should be to pray about it and to offer that to Christ, and sometimes, you know what, when you pray about something like, God, I want you to show this person that they're wrong, maybe you're wrong. And maybe God is going to show you that you're wrong and that you need to learn from somebody else. And we're only going to find that out if we are like willing to humble ourselves and pray about it.
Yes. Thank you for your words of wisdom.
I wish I would do them and not just say them. But
So what tips would you give to someone who wants to build a stronger prayer habit?
Okay, so this is one I thought a lot about. And I would say the main word that comes to mind for me is consistency, but also practicality. So there's like, and I have tried this many times, it's like you think about praying and you're like, wow, this is so powerful. Now I'm going to set my alarm for 5 a.m. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to spend an hour praying every day. You're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. No, like, you can't just totally change everything about your life overnight. And it's like, if you do that for one day, that's great. But like, the most important thing is to like do something every day. So if all you have is 5 minutes and in the morning to pray for 5 minutes every single morning. Don't skip it. I mean, if you have to skip it, like, it's not, Jesus isn't going to be mad at you. But generally speaking, I think consistency is key. So it shouldn't be just something that we do on the weekends or something that we do if you happen to have woken up early and you have a little bit of extra time. Like, figure out at what point in your day, and it's better even to like pray a little bit throughout the day. That's what I've learned. That's what I've been told. And I agree, is that better than to just pray for like, do a big prayer session in the morning and then not at all.
Yeah.
Is to like try to spend a few minutes in prayer at different points in your day, and then you'll be in that more constant prayer mindset. And so
Yes.
that's going to help you a lot more, and that's going to be better for your own soul. And I would say also like learning prayers is really awesome. Try the Psalms. They're really great.
Yes.
And, you know, because if you can commit some Psalms to memory and you have, you know, for the morning, afternoon, evening, things that you will pray, that doesn't mean you can't have your own personal requests. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive at all.
Right.
If you look at like Jesus and the apostles and what they did, they would have had a lot of different set prayers that they would have done at multiple times during the day. And that was just part of like their culture. It was part of how they related to God. And that was like really, really awesome for them. And I think we could totally integrate that in our own lives. And so, yeah, like the Psalms are awesome. The Lord's Prayer is awesome.
Yes.
Just like praying those things and adding in our own requests, but just, you know, staying in that mindset at like multiple points throughout the day, I think is really, really, really good. You know, you're a lot less likely to like, you know, have road rage if you pray before you get into your car. You know, you're a lot less likely to snap out at people if you spend a lot of time in prayer, and that's like how you're addressing your anger, and that's how you're addressing your frustrations, that you pray about it instead of, you know, getting mad at your family when you get home, which is not something I never do. But yeah, I think, you know, I have noticed that praying on a disciplined basis has really improved me as a person, and so I think I would hugely encourage people to do that.
I like that. Well, thank you so much, Abby, for joining
so
us on
welcome.
Messenger today. Up next, we'll hear how outreach and service have deepened the faith of two guests, Jocelyn Assuming, reflecting on camp meeting, and Josh Martin, sharing his recent mission experience. Let's take a look. Before we jump in, let's talk about camp meeting. If you've never been, it's a special time when people from churches all over come together, kind of like a big spiritual family reunion. There are worship services, workshops, music, and time to connect with others and with God. For many, it's the highlight of the year. Today, we're talking with Joycelyn Assuming to hear what the Ontario Camp Meeting meant to her this year. Hello, Joycelyn. Thank you so much for joining us today on Messenger.
Hello, Adriana.
How long have you been attending camp meeting?
I've been attending since infancy.
When you hear camp meeting, what comes to mind? What does it mean to you?
It means a large fellowship with like-minded people so that we can share our faith and we can learn about each other and grow closer to God.
So how did this year's camp meeting help you grow in your faith?
It helped me grow in my faith because coming, I was very shy. I was very timid, and when I came, I decided to meet new people. I said that I want to meet at least 15 people. And I was able to meet around 20, so I was really happy about that.
Wow. What would you say to someone who's never been to camp meeting before?
I would say that you don't really need to be so prepared to go. When you go there, it's going to prepare you, and that it will teach you many things spiritually, and it will help you to know that, yes, you have a purpose and that you're a special and chosen creation by God, and that God is not done with your life, even though that you may feel like God doesn't answer your prayers, but He's going to reassure you that in His Word, that's where you can find Him, and through prayer, He's going to answer you.
Yes, that's so beautiful and well said. After all the fun and inspiration, how do you keep that spiritual momentum going?
I reconnect with the people that I've met. I met this girl, and she was sort of She's from here, but she goes to school in Alberta, and
Okay.
she's 1 year younger than me, and I was able to reconnect with her and learn about a volunteering position that she had with Hope Channel.
Oh,
And
nice.
that was really nice. I didn't know about that until she said so.
That's great. You were really networking and connecting with people. Thank you, Joycelyn, for sharing how camp meeting helped you grow in your faith. It was great having you on the show. Moments like that remind us that God meets us right where we are, whether that's in a crowd of believers or in the silence of worship during camp. But faith doesn't stop when camp ends. For some, it leads to stepping out, traveling far, and serving in new ways. Josh Martin is one of those people. He recently went on a mission trip and came back with powerful stories of what God is doing beyond our local churches. Let's hear more from Josh in this Fresh Faith story. Hello, Josh, and welcome to Messenger. First off, where did you go for your mission trip and how long were you there?
Okay, I went to the Philippines for about 3 weeks, from April 28th to May 16th. There was about 17 of us. 13 of us were Burman students, and the 4 other individuals were chaperones, which were our chaplains for the school.
What inspired you to go on this trip in the first place?
I think what inspired me the most was partly because I was born in the Philippines and raised in Canada. For me, I've always carried this deep of sense that I needed to give back to where I came from, and sometimes I carry a little guilt that I escaped the poverty that they are suffering. When the opportunity came through Burman, I felt God tugging my heart, and I was like, I need to go. And it wasn't about just helping; it was about reconnecting with my roots and living out the faith that I say I believe in. And I have had experiences in the Philippines where I've seen poverty in children and in just communities that I would like to help in. So I told myself I would never go back until I found my calling to help out my country or the town that I was from.
What was a typical day like while you were there?
So our days were long, but it was very fulfilling. Mornings often started with morning devotions and worship done by different members of the group, and it would be always at 7:30 a.m., followed by traveling to our outreach sites. So some days we were playing with children in orphanages, handing out food. Others were helping run medical clinics, which was a hands-on experience, but I never thought I would even get to as well. Evenings were usually spent debriefing about our team and praying together, and every day was just different, but every day was purpose-filled.
Did you have any moments that really stuck with you, something unexpected or powerful?
Yes, there was a moment when we visited a small orphanage, and it was called the Mango House Orphanage. And a little boy came up to me, and he just held my hand, and he didn't say anything. He didn't need anything, he just wanted to be near someone. And that moment kind of stuck out to me. It reminded me how powerful presence can be, especially with young children. We often think that, we need the perfect words or gifts, but sometimes people just need to know you're there for them. And then later that day, I found out that he actually had heart surgery a month ago. He underwent a surgery where he had to fix a little hole in his heart. And that just made it so much better for me to hear, because he's thriving his life and he's living the best life that he has now. And what was cool to know was that it was funded by the church and the mission that we were with.
What's something you learned about God or yourself through this experience?
I learned that God doesn't call the equipped. I think he equips the called. I've learned that from a lot of my experiences in missions. I've always doubted whether I had it or I had what it takes to serve in big ways, but this trip taught me that all he asks for is a willing heart, and I also learned that God is moving powerfully in places we don't often see, and that faith doesn't look the same everywhere, but it's just as real.
Did this trip change how you see mission work or your own role in God's bigger story?
I think yes, for me. Partly why my parents took me to Canada was to get a better education, but it was also because I didn't have a good time in the Philippines when I was living there when I was younger. I was bullied a lot, and my education didn't match what I needed. And so I moved to Canada with my parents, and I got healing from that. And then I've always had this kind of mindset that the Philippines has just hurt me more than impacted me positively. But then when I went to the Philippines this year, I kind of just noticed that everybody else there is also feeling the same thing. And what I could do is just to give back what I've been given when it comes to education or just, help.
How do you plan to keep that mission mindset now that you're back home?
I used to see mission work as something only called people do, but now I see it not only about geography, it's about obedience too as well. Whether I'm in the Philippines or back in Canada, I'm still on a mission. We don't stop being part of God's story just because we're home. So that's what has really stuck with me.
And finally, what would you say to another young person who's thinking about going on a mission trip?
I would say go even if you're scared, even if you feel unqualified to go, still go. You'll see things that change your heart forever. You'll realize how much you can grow when you're uncomfortable, and most of all, you'll get to see what it really looks like to be the hands and feet of Jesus. It's not about having all the answers, it's about being willing to show up and let God use you.
Josh, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It's amazing to see how stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to a deeper faith and a bigger heart for others. We're proud of you. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Whether it was hearing about Jocelyn's camp meeting experience or Josh's mission trip, we hope you were inspired by the many ways young people are stepping up for God. Outreach isn't always easy, but when we say yes to God, just like Paul did, it can change lives, including our own. If you would like to work with us, consider becoming an agent of hope and supporting this ministry. Your participation helps us continue spreading God's love and message of hope. To donate, visit agentsofhope.ca, where you can give by debit, credit, Apple Pay, or Google Pay. E-transfers are also accepted at agentsofhope@hopetv.ca. You can mail a check payable to Hope Channel Canada to the following address: Hope Channel Canada, 1148 King Street East, Oshawa, Ontario, L1H 1H8. Or give us a call at 1-855-4HOPE-TV. That's 1-855-446-7388. Thank you for being with us today. Keep spreading hope and being a messenger in your community.